Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Hi, it's Mercedes, one of your co-hosts, and I'm so excited that you decided to join us for this episode of Hack Your Happiness. Before we get started, I just want to say this conversation with Camm and Tyler from Down With Webster is truly a special one. It's very near and dear to Anastasia and I's heart because we've been listening to Down With Webster since we were little girls, and we're such huge fans of their work. So I encourage you to, before this episode even starts, send the link to someone in your life who is into music, who maybe wants to be in the music industry someday, or who needs to put a little bit less pressure on themselves. I think we can all think of a few people like this in our lives. So if any of those people resonate with you, or if you think of anyone during this episode while you're listening that you think could hear this, I encourage you to send it to them because when we share happiness, we feel happier too. Now let's get into the episode. Today we're speaking with Tyler and Camm from Down With Webster.
Grade 8. Me, Pat, and Marty were in a talent show where we had to do like an organized dance or like make a poster for a band, and Pat was like, no, let's just start a band.
A powerhouse Canadian band that fuses hip-hop, rock, pop, and electronic sounds into one unforgettable style.
Down With Webster.
Down With Webster.
Down With Webster.
How did you find balancing music with school and with just overall being a teen?
As of like grade 9, I had this mindset of like, this is what I want to do. It's this or nothing.
What is your advice for young people who want to pursue a less conventional career path to take this leap and feel confident?
I remember having that feeling and not realizing that
You guys took a hiatus and then reunited. So what did you each learn about yourselves during that time apart, and how has that personal growth changed the way that you approach music or other parts of your life?
Yeah, I mean, it took doing this podcast for me to like get a really good understanding of like how much useless pressure I was putting on myself.
Welcome to Hack Your Happiness.
Welcome, Tyler and Camm.
What's up? Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Hack Your Happiness is a podcast designed to bring you the behind the scenes of what brings iconic individuals happiness, plus their life hacks.
I'm Mercedes.
And I'm Anastasia.
Thank you. We're so excited to have you both here. We're huge fans of Down With Webster, and you're both talented musicians who have been on the music scene for a long time. Could you tell us both how you got started and how Down With Webster came to be?
Sure. It's a long story. Let's make it short.
Yeah.
Me, Pat, and Marty were in a talent show where we had to do like an organized dance, which we certainly weren't doing, or like make a poster for a band, and Pat was like, no, let's just start a band. So we made the band, we named it Down With Webster that day in class, didn't know what it meant.
What grade was this in?
Grade 8.
Nice.
Yeah, grade 8. And the rest is history. We just like kept going through high school and played gigs and played bars we weren't allowed to play in. And Camm was in high school with us, and he would like drop in and do some shows with us. Sometimes he wouldn't come. And then eventually after high school, it was like we locked in, and that was kind of the full band from then on.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's so cool how long it's been.
Yeah, I love that you guys also started in high school or even a little bit before then because, yeah, as two teens, Anastasia and I just think it's so awesome to see people, following their passions and following through with them and being so inspiring and successful.
Love it.
Totally.
Absolutely. And we know from Small Bits of Happiness that having extracurriculars as a teen can be a lot to balance. So while you were starting Down With Webster as teens, how did you find balancing music with school, with responsibilities, and with just overall being a teen?
I didn't really have any other extracurriculars going on, so the balance wasn't that difficult. It was more like balancing in between like social life and, music. But I think when I was in high school, it was still, for me, it was very much a hobby. You know what I mean? It was like a fun hobby.
Yeah, I think for the most part, I think like for me, as of like grade 9, I had this mindset of like, this is what I want to do. It's this or nothing. But that being said, it was still like fun. I wasn't treating it like extremely, well, kind of. I don't know.
You were taking it seriously.
I was a little bit different. But in terms of balancing, I used to, when I was trying to be like a jazz bassist, would lock myself in a room for hours and hours. Once the band started to form, it was evident that like, putting way more time in doesn't always get the best results out. Like you kind of have to just let things happen naturally. So I think, it was always like a mix of us having fun and laughing a lot and goofing around and music. It was never like, this is a schedule, it's these days at this time. We just liked hanging out together, and we happened to make music together.
Yeah, if you're too worried all the time, you're just going to burn out. It's kind of like you got to do stuff that's fun.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned also let it be natural, and that you can't always force perfection onto yourself. You have to kind of let it come with you.
Exactly. Like doing fun things, spending time with people who, you know, you can be yourself with and you can be creative with. I think once we get to like rigorous and like, I have to be doing this at this time and then after that I have to drive over here and do that, then it stops being fun and you don't really, you know, feel excited about it anymore, right?
For sure. And like especially something that's creative in nature, like putting up walls and framework. At some point, like you might get something done that day because, you know, you said you were, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be great or reflective of actually coming from an experience. So I don't know, I thought we were always pretty good about that. Like,
There was a healthy dose of people that just really didn't care, mixed
Yeah.
with people that did care.
yeah, it was
So
a
it's
good
like,
balance. Some
yeah.
people were just a little
Just
more,
having fun.
just have a little more fun. I mean, like we certainly went through experiences later in our career where we started to try to, you know, bring in other writers and other people and do this whole thing in LA where it was like, get out of your comfort zone and go meet people. And like for the most part, most of that stuff didn't work ever for getting music that we really liked. It was good because we got to work with other people and see how other people worked and learn some, you know, tricks of the trade from them. It made us better like writers, but in terms of like the most special stuff we ever make is usually with the group of us. It doesn't come from anybody else.
And not thinking that hard about it.
Not thinking that.
I love that. It just comes to you like when you're in the flow, when you're just, you know, enjoying your time with your friends. And I think that's something that a lot of the times we overlook in, you know, our hustle culture of just go, go, go. Because I think sometimes productivity isn't from the amount of time we spend on something, it's more quality over quantity. And so before you signed with Universal, you worked as independent artists. So how did you persevere in the music industry, and what's your advice to others for being more perseverant?
We were definitely just like extremely dedicated. Like we kind of, I think it was like right after a lot of us had either been in college for a couple years or sort of had taken time off in between high school and college, where we just like had this mentality of like, we're going to make this happen by any means.
Yeah.
And just sort of treated
Do
it
everything. Like you own publicity, own marketing.
it was just like a 360 life, and it was lucky because we were doing it with our best friends, so it was like this weird mixture of like, it is your social life, but it also is your work, and it became this 360 thing where we were always sort of working. We were pretty dedicated. We're like, we'd be rehearsing or we'd be writing songs. If we weren't doing that, we'd be like running around down by the Air Canada Centre, like plastering up flyers so people who lined up outside of sports games would see them. We were at the time, you know, we were some of the first people to like deal with kind of social media. So we would be on MySpace for like, I don't know,
Dude, that was
10
crazy.
hours until they kicked us off.
We would have like 6 computers set up in like our rehearsal space. It was my dad's old studio. It was like a garage basically. Studio's a fancy word, but it's where we spent like every day. We met up there and we had literally each one of us on a laptop. And when you use MySpace too much in one day, and like it must have something to do with how many outward messages you post or whatever,
Yeah.
it like says you've exceeded your daily limit. So we would be like, we're on MySpace today sending out hundreds of messages to people that like bands that are similar to us, you know, like copy pasting messages and spamming people's walls. Like, if you like this band,
Yeah.
check us out.
It's interesting because at the time that was unique. But now I feel like everyone, that's expected from everyone now. Like, it's like no longer can you just go make music. Like, you have to be this like marketing and, you know, publicity arm.
For
in
sure.
addition to making music. It's like you have to be this like 360 thing. We were just like guinea pigs kind of for that system.
Well said.
You know?
Yeah.
But I guess really with us was just persistence. We just didn't stop.
Yeah, we heard no so many times from like very respectable people that I still have a lot of respect for, and they weren't wrong. They were like, I don't get it yet. And there were like moments that they got, but like overall, it just needed like time to figure out like, what does this really look like? What does it sound like? And the only way you get there is by doing it and doing it over and over again. And eventually you get 4 songs that all sound like they belong on an album, and you get the feedback from your friends. Like, you know, I remember in high school and people were like, I want that song you played last night on a CD. And you hear a lot of people say that, you're like, oh, that's new. People actually like want to play it all day and they're bugging me about it nonstop. You just get this feedback from people and kind of use that as like your North Star.
I think that's such a great, you know, anecdote of like you guys, doing all the things, marketing and then songwriting and then writing and recording your songs. And I think it just goes to show that like so many people, we have goals or ambitions. Maybe others want to start a band, or maybe you want to, write a book, or you want to start a small business, whatever it is. But like whatever your goal is, or even if it's just, getting through the semester in school, you have to really like just be willing to put the time. Like sometimes the only solution to perseverance is to just keep going, even when you get rejection or even when you're having an off day, is just to kind of keep going. And I think sometimes we that's just what you got to do.
Absolutely. And I also think it's really interesting because like you mentioned, you really enjoyed it as well because you were spending so much time with your friends. And I'm wondering, because I know a lot of times when you're working with your friends, it can kind of feel like you don't know where that boundary of like coworker and like band member and then friend kind of begins. How did you guys like figure that out?
I don't know if we did. I think we did. Like, so much of this was like not overly thinking about it, I think, in the moment. Like, looking back on it now, we just sort of did it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, there's depth for better or worse. Like, there's moments where you're at each other's throats. There's moments where the lines get blurred. Like, for sure. It's just like, trial and error.
I think we're lucky where, there's a lot of strong personalities in the band, but like we don't have any, kind of person in the band that like has the crazy lead singer ego, or like these tropes that you hear about where one person can really like come into a room and change the whole dynamic. There's such an equal respect because so many people do things better than others, but like you give them slack here because they do something so well over there that you don't do. So it was just about like, the more you do it, the more you're like, yeah, it's okay that he is difficult in these situations, but like he's so great over here. So you just kind of learn what everyone's roles are. But I think we did get really lucky because, we've met so many bands, toured with so many bands, and we would see some of these things you hear about and be like, thank God that like we don't have someone like that, or our singer doesn't act like this in the studio. Like it's a very easygoing atmosphere, and generally speaking, everyone's pretty good at listening to all ideas before shooting ideas down.
I think that's fantastic. And you're right. Sometimes if we overthink things, like that can be, kind of shoot us before we even get started. And I think that's such a great message. Like sometimes just start and figure things out as they come at you. And so I think kind of going back to the way that you started your amazing band Down With Webster in middle school, right? 8th grade. I think there's a lot of pressure these days. We're both finishing up high school right now. And there's a lot of pressure on teens, on kids to go into, secure and conventional careers. And I mean, that does make sense, for instance, like engineering or teaching or medicine. Right. But to be a successful musician, like you said, you have to be just as perseverant, just as dedicated, even more sometimes, because it's less secure. And so what is your advice for young people who want to pursue a less conventional career path to take this leap and feel confident within themselves?
I think for me, it's like you have to love it so much, and you have to be okay with your expectation being managed. Like obviously everyone has like their apex mountain of this is the best case scenario that happens to me, but you have to be okay with somewhere in between there as well. And as long as the driving force is, that you love doing this and it brings you happiness, I think that's like the most important thing.
Yeah, no, I would agree. It's like how you want to spend your time and your life, and like security is nice, obviously, but like for me, it was never worth mortgaging my like day-to-day happiness for. You know what I mean? So it's what you can live with. It's the kind of risk you can live with. It's like, and at the time and still, I wouldn't change it. So I would say if you do love it, go for it.
You can always pivot these days, like so little is actually finite in terms of like, okay, you take a crack at it for a couple of years and you don't get the feedback you were hoping for, and there's nobody giving you 2 thumbs up, and you're like,
I agree, because I remember having that feeling when I was sort of, your guys' age, and not realizing that, like, I look back and I'm like, you have so much more time than you think you have.
So much more time.
Everyone thinks there's this clock where you're like going to turn 25 and it's like, oh my God, I'm so old. It's like 25, you're a baby. Like you have a lot of time.
Yeah. 100%.
At 30, you have time. Yep. So like, yeah, I'd say do what makes you happy.
Exciting news! If you didn't know, Anastasia and I actually have an entire product line that we've designed and developed together to help you find more happiness in daily lives, because we all need something tangible. This is our latest activity box, the Mission Family Time. It comes with 4 card categories: talking points, DIYs, fun things to do at home, as well as fun things to do outside of home. So Anastasia, let's grab a card. What would you say are 3 of your personal strengths?
I'm creative,
You are.
good at writing, I'm good at talking to people. How about you?
Love it. I think I'm pretty hardworking.
Definitely.
I'm focused.
Definitely.
And also funny sometimes. That's a great way for you to get to know yourself as well as your loved ones more. And it also makes for a great gift. So you can shop Mission Family Time now. It's linked in the show notes.
Now let's get back to the episode.
Oh, I love that. And I think you're so right. Like,
Absolutely.
you can change your major, you can, go back, you can do something else, you can move. I think there's so many possibilities, especially, with the internet and, media, and you can take an online class if you want to go back and learn something, maybe marketing. And so I think that that's something that a lot of teens have to keep in mind. I know I'm always trying to remember that. And I love your message and your advice to just focus on what you love, and if that's something conventional or not conventional, like if you love something, like you said, then you'll
Yeah.
be, only then will you be able to truly dedicate yourself to that.
Absolutely. At the same time, it can be kind of scary to, pursue that. And what do you think gave you all that courage to go into music, as well as what were some of your concerns or worries, and what do you think enabled you?
Yeah, when you were making that decision to go all in on your music, did you have any concerns in the back of your minds?
I think there's there's always a voice of what if this doesn't happen? But, I came from a musical family where my dad made a living as a musician. And so even though he wasn't doing the kind of thing that I was doing, I saw that this is possible. And I knew the life that I had growing up, and that at the very least, I'd be very happy with that. But while you're going out and seeing gigs, when you're a young band and you're seeing people doing things at a much higher level, you're able to look at it and be yeah, they're better at this, but we're not that far away. And to be honest, I could see us up there a year from now. Or I was always gauging where we were at against other artists. And at some point, once you put in the work, you're man, we're not that far off. And I think that really encouraged me, by the time I was 19 or 20, is seeing other people successful and being we're not that different. We're almost there.
Like you said, for one, I had sort of parents that were in the arts growing up. Both my parents were actors, so I was okay, this is clearly possible. Where and they weren't even particularly successful actors, but I had a good childhood, so I'm okay, this can work out one way or the other. And also when I was in college, it was just such a no-brainer that I really wasn't happy doing what I was doing, and every time I was working on music, I was really happy. So I'm okay, even if I leave and come back, it makes sense that I would go for this right now. And I think that was always in the back of my head. It was I'll give it a couple years, see what happens. And luckily enough, the couple years I gave it, things went well.
I love that so much. I love that you just went in on it, give it a few years, and you can always come back. And I think that's such an important thing. Just because you're committing to something, no matter what it is, doesn't mean it's for a lifetime. It's just for the right now and just riding that wave. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm studying communications. I'm not I'm not a heart surgeon. I'll figure it out. I'll come back.
Exactly.
Totally. You can always, and I feel a lot of times teens feel if I'm closing this door, that means I can never open it again. It's locked.
It's so not. It's,
Couldn't be more the opposite.
Yeah, professional sports. Yeah. There's a few things that are off the table that you kind of got to go for when you're young, but other than that,
yeah,
it's pretty open.
Still a tough pill to swallow. I watch the NHL and they're this guy's 38 at the end of his career. I'm God.
It's too late, Todd.
Too late. It's too late.
Yeah, there are a few things, but for the most part, exactly. And so for a little bit of a shift in the conversation, you talk a lot about how you guys were fueled, by the fun and the happiness and the enjoyment you got from working and collaborating together, writing and performing your music. And so for people who are into performing music or maybe not so much, what's your advice for how to find more fun in everyday life?
I'm a big extracurricular do a lot of things in a day. So I love sports. I still play in a bunch of sports leagues that have nothing to do with music, but it does something for me. Competing does something for me. I think it's important if you're so fixated on your career, you have to have a couple things that have nothing to do with it, or else, I think you kind of drive yourself crazy.
Yeah, I'm the complete opposite. I'm a total flop. I love to just do nothing and not overly think about it too much. For me, it's sort of being able to like step out of things and not have to take everything so seriously all the time, being able to just be like, I'm just gonna like lounge around and screw off, that to me is valuable in its own way. It sort of like resets me. So I don't know, I think each person comes to it their own way, but like, you know, whether it's doing activities that you like or just like, it's just not taking things so seriously and being so driven all the time, because that's exhausting. You know what I mean?
And you'll burn out.
Yeah, it's just like...
Unless like you're trying to be like a chess grandmaster or something. Like there are things where it's like you have to do this every day. You want to be like a ballerina or a figure skater. Like there's no way around. Just like your whole life is going to be this, and you're going to sacrifice so much if you really want to be number one. But in music, you know,
I think you still get some chilling in there every now and then.
I hope so.
Like,
I hope those figure skaters are getting some
can.
time to let loose.
They
But,
for sure can.
yeah.
You gotta find the time.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And
And
I think sometimes, especially in our modern day, where it's like, if you're not doing something, you're not being productive, it can be, you know, sometimes we undermine that downtime. But we talk a lot on our podcast, like we've interviewed Olympic athletes, and a part of their training is taking a downtime, you know, taking a break, going to the spa, or going to just like have a day of no training or low impact. And so I think, yeah, it's like if you don't consider that a part almost of your career, like it's going to make you better student, better friend, better family member, better performer in every aspect.
Absolutely. And like you said, it'll prevent burnout, because the last thing you want is to have something that you're so passionate about, but you're just too exhausted to work on it, and then you just lose interest in something that you used to really love.
Yeah, like mitigating stress is huge, just in life in general, I think. And the more things that you can do or work into your life that combat that, it's good.
And I also love how you both mentioned that you can find different ways of like feeling happy and relaxing,
exactly.
because it's really different for everybody. I know
There's no catch-all. He feels enormously stressed if he eats pizza and lays on the couch. He feels really good if he goes and plays sports. For me, it's the opposite. I feel tired and stressed when I play sports. I'm happy when I'm on the couch eating pizza. So it's whatever's
Really
giving you that.
It's the
Like,
yin
you know
and
what I mean?
yang of life right there. That's
It's
it.
whatever's giving you
But
that
I also
feeling.
really do like to lay down and eat pizza. But I understand exactly what you're saying.
You mean stress
I feel
the
a
other
tremendous amount of shame and guilt.
Yeah.
Whereas you're like, oh, that was fantastic.
I feel great. But yeah, it's whatever you makes you kind of like de-stress. I think it's important to like build that into your life in some way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that oftentimes, you know, like touring and doing a lot of performing can be very stressful. So how do you deal with stress like that? I know you mentioned relaxing, but is there like other methods that you use for coping?
I'm trying to think back, as like now our schedule's been a lot more chill this past while, but like when we were like really touring and playing like 200 shows a year, I mean, I remember just getting off tour and going home and just like really relaxing, like full like
turning off.
month of just like turning off and like seeing my friends, seeing my family, playing video games, eating poorly, and whatever else.
I think like
makes me happy.
Your answer, everyone probably has a different answer. Mine always was like, if I was feeling super stressed or anxious, like exercise, going for a run, doing something that got my heart rate up, or sweating was always like a stabilizer for me. And to this day, it still is. But that's my thing. Like if I can tell if I haven't worked out enough or ran before bed, like my energy's way too frantic and I have a hard time settling down. I'm like, right, I didn't do something today to get that energy out. So for me, it's like super tied to something physical.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic. Sometimes some of us find happiness or fun or relaxation by being active, and sometimes it's more so passive or like just relaxing. I think that's a great way to see.
Yeah, some people meditate or they read, or everyone finds their own way of getting.
I also think it's really interesting because, and I feel like we also feel that, I know we're in like the final stretch of the school year where it's like finals and stuff, and you really kind of have to like understand that it's like, it's okay right now to have less relaxation and focus more on like the work and just putting in that time, putting in that studying. And then that at the end of that, you'll have some of that more relaxing time. I know we have summer that we're looking forward to.
Break.
But just knowing that, that relaxation part will come in later, we just need to like finish that final stretch.
And so a bit of a shift in the conversation to the kind of the history, looking back at Down With Webster. You guys took a bit of a hiatus and then reunited. So what did you each learn about yourselves during that time apart, and how has that personal growth changed the way that you approach music or other parts of your life today?
I think something I think all of us could agree on is that like it wasn't that we were taking this for granted, because we were always, I think, really well aware of how lucky we were, but certainly by like the end of the first stretch of the band, like 2014 or 15, like the part of the fun wasn't there as much anymore. I think there was just like a lot more stress about, you know, where people were in their lives, and the creative wasn't coming as easy or naturally as it had. And it wasn't like we had a big meeting or like it was, I don't know, we didn't break up. We never were like, hey, we're stopping this. I moved to LA, and there were a few other things that people got to go and do. And I think part of leaving the band was for everyone to like figure out, if I didn't have a band, what would I do in the world? And in those like 8 or 9 years, people figured out like who they really were outside of the band, which I think is really important. Like you can't have the band as your entire identity.
Yeah, no, it's confusing to do something from when you're literally in high school up until you're 30 and not really know anything else. It was definitely a nice break, like he said,
necessary,
to see what is out there aside from this, because we've been doing one thing for so long, and you kind of when you do come back to it, you sort of have like a renewed perspective on it and like appreciate it for what it is and for what it isn't, and it's just healthier.
I think that's so smart what you said there about having to understand who you are and who each person and each member was outside of the band, because I think sometimes this happens to teens, and I've seen it happen to my friends, is like you are doing a sport or you're in, I don't know, drama or whatever activity from like first grade, and then you get to high school, you get to like 11th grade, and you have to quit because you don't have enough time to, you know, go to practice anymore, and you don't know what to do with yourself, you don't know what your other interests are, you don't know what you want to do for a job, you don't know what you want to do outside of school, because your whole identity is kind of tied to that activity because you've been doing it for so long. And so I can imagine that like doing the band was probably even more of an intense experience because you were in your older years, and I think it's really smart to kind of take a step back and really think about your own interests and who you are as a person.
Yeah, like just thinking about it after you say that, like it wasn't even a decision we had to come to. It just like happened. It was like, I don't know, we're just not planning the next studio session, we're not planning the next tour. And like just time kind of went past, and then it was like, yeah, we're taking a little break. That's what we're doing. But like, it was never something we really had to like meet or wrestle with. Or,
no.
Like, it just kind of like the right thing happened, and you know, I'm really happy that we're doing this again. There was certainly, if you asked me 2 years ago, would this have ever, you know, would a comeback happen or a reunion? I would have been like maybe, but certainly wasn't in the cards or something that, you know, me and Camm both live in LA for most of the year, and I see him all the time there. And like it wasn't something we were talking about.
No, we weren't planning on it. But it happens, and I'm glad it happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the most fun I think I've ever had with the band was last summer. You know, like it wasn't the craziest tour of all time, and like it was different than, you know, doing it in our 20s. But being able to just like enjoy it for everything it's worth and not feel the stress of like this is my entire life, and looking at your band members and, you know, with, you know, contempt or make, you know.
Well, that's so much of it is just like alleviating some of that pressure, like what you're talking about, where you put all that pressure on yourself, and every choice you're making is like, this is do or die. If this doesn't work, oh my God, like what's on the other side of it failing seems like the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
And when you actually experience what's on the other side of that, it's not the end of the world. Turns out everything's fine. And when you come back to it, you sort of don't have that same mentality, and it actually makes everything a lot easier and a lot more enjoyable. But it's difficult to like convey that to someone who hasn't. You know, I don't think it could have been explained to me at the time. I would have had to experience it.
Yeah.
I recently came back from a trip with my dad, and I brought my Manta sleep mask with me, and I have to tell you, this sleep mask was game changing.
Plus, I lent my Manta sleep mask to my dad so he could sleep on the plane, and oh my gosh, Anastasia, you tell them.
Oh yes, I slept so well. My dad said that he woke up, he had no idea where he was, because these are 100% blackout, so you won't see any lighting. They help you sleep longer and deeper. The silk one is super silky and amazing. My dad used Mercedes' sound eye mask that can play sounds to help you sleep.
I mean, what don't they have? And best of all, these gifts are fantastic for college going away gifts. I know right now it's a season of change in a lot of our lives. So if you're looking for a great gift to get yourself or a teen in your life, the Manta Sleep Mask is a thoughtful gift that brings us a small bit of happiness, because I mean, sleep is linked to more happiness and wellness. So you can shop now using the link in our show notes.
So let's get back to the episode.
That's fantastic. I think, even for teens or for anyone who's listening to this, it's so important to realize that like life is not, so polarized, so black and white. Like it's not like what you do now is how you're going to be forever, or, it's either you're successful or you're not. Like I think you're right. There's so much to be experienced. There's so much in between. And if we just kind of let ourselves go through the different phases of life, come back to things, leave things, I think that we can have a much better experience. Yeah.
And like even people like over the years we've been in proximity to a lot of successful people. Everyone's life is like this. There's no like the myth that you just like this happens and then this happens and you're up here. It's like no one lives like that.
Cam and I, we haven't mentioned this, but something we do as well. We play a lot of video games, and like obviously different parts of our life we played more, but it's something that we definitely do during our downtime.
For sure.
I definitely do it when I want to like turn off. It's definitely one of the things that I do. But like when you're saying that like life isn't like this and there's ups and downs, we like use the analogy like if you're able to beat your favorite video game in like a day, it's like, well then you've beat it. Then like what else do you do? Like it's part of the journey of all of this is like it's the ups and the downs. And I know that when I was younger, it was like I want a US record deal and I want a Grammy and I want this. And it's like if all of that had happened by the time I was 25, it's like then what? Like journey's over. You got all the items in the game. Like you got to enjoy.
Yeah, but then something else bad happens. There's just no way to fix it. Like
there's no way to fix it.
There's no way to like. It's just a myth that happens. That like people have it figured out, and it just goes in this linear path. It's like it's all wild.
Yeah.
Just try to have fun and do things that bring you happiness
and do them with your favorite people if you can, or have your favorite people close by.
Aw, that is such a great analogy. First of all,
absolutely,
yeah, totally,
yeah. And I also think it's really interesting how you mentioned like I don't know. I think it's really interesting about how you talked about like the ups and the ups and downs, because I feel like oftentimes we see on social media so much about just the ups, and that's how we think that everyone's life is except for ours, because we have that kind of roller coaster. But just kind of like normalizing knowing that like everyone's going through both of those at the exact same time, and that's totally okay.
Exactly.
And your music that you create with Down With Webster is so unique, and it blends so many genres, which is unconventional, but it also is what makes your music so unique and singular. So it comes across as timeless and fresh. Did you ever feel the pressure to fit into a mold, and what's your advice for staying authentic?
I mean, we definitely felt the pressure to fit in a mold. I feel like every label, or like a lot of our first no's that people told us were because we didn't fit into anything. And it's like, we don't know how to market this, but we don't know where to put this.
Screamed and refused.
We just refused. Honestly, we're eclectic out of like necessity.
Yeah.
Like we're a group of people where it's not an obvious sell. It's like no one is the best at anything that they do. Everyone here just like is like good and unique, and I think adds a really important thing, but it's by no means is it obvious. And it was not an easy sell.
Yeah, I think a lot of the artists that we see, it's like a very like singular vision. Like obviously if it's a solo artist, even more so. But generally speaking, even in a band, it's like one person's thing. It's Chris Martin's thing. Other guys are fantastic, but this is like Chris's ship, and this is what the album's going to sound like. With us, if you put all of our influences, what we listen to, on a piece of paper, there's going to be like very little crossover between the members of this band. Drastically different people are going to be on that list. And I think that's probably a reason that things sound the way they do, is that everyone came up listening to totally different music, and everyone's voice does get included in our music. So it's just not like a singularity in terms of a perspective or a genre. It's like very much infused naturally by virtue of, our experiences and our taste.
Amazing. I love that part of like you just knew in your gut that like this is your music, and even when you had, exterior voices or trends or influence or whatever it was, kind of like making a mold that like, maybe the trending music at the time is, or what's a record producer is looking out for. I think just knowing and being true to yourself is so important. Sometimes there's not like a formula to achieving that. It's just like knowing that this is what you want, this is your value, and just sticking to that and knowing that that will resonate with someone out there, which it has for you guys.
Absolutely.
Stubbornness. Yeah, and when you make something that you like, it's a very good sign. And like, as soon as your friends start liking it, then you're like, okay, it's not just me. I'm not crazy or I'm not full of myself. But like, ultimately, that's kind of how we've always been. It's like, I'll listen to something that Camm wrote in his basement or something and be like, that's amazing. And he's like, really? I'm like, yep, that's special. And then me and 2 other people jump in on it. And like, that's generally how we work. It's like, you identify something someone did and then take it and build it up.
It's also really rare in bands to have like this equal of a writing partnership.
Yeah.
I think most bands you're running into, there's a primary writer and the other people sort of fill in the gaps live, where like this is a band where everyone is sort of writing. And that's coming across in the finished product and why it probably sounds, as disparate as it does.
I love that. That is amazing and just a super cool
Yeah.
fact to know that like you all collaborate and that you're all included in the final part as equally as you are. I love that so much. And so kind of I think what we've noticed is that over the years as you've been musicians, not only has, the music industry changed, but a lot of like the people and the trends have changed, and you have grown from middle schoolers into adults. And so how have you navigated kind of the changes within the industry, the people who work in the industry, and yourselves all kind of culminating?
How have we? I mean, we haven't really had a
Have we?
choice. I don't think that we have. Poorly, maybe. I don't know. But like, we've been in it's been like an unprecedented time in music ever since we first started.
Yeah, we got
music.
in at a crazy bad time, like quote unquote bad time, because it was like the death of CDs, the beginning of like
The
illegal
internet.
streaming.
Everyone was stealing everything, and then they were like, okay, now we have like iTunes downloads and people are making money again, and it was like, no, we don't, and now we're doing Spotify, and then everything has gone to the streaming model, and it's starting to like stabilize again, but like it's always been crazy, like ever since we got in.
I think for us, like the live show's always been a big part of our band and the connection we have with our crowd when we're in the same room with them. And
That's always been our thing.
that's always been our thing.
Yeah.
Like the music is like a vehicle to be in the same room together. So I think that's something that like concerts are never going away. And last summer when we on a whim we're like, let's put up some tour dates and see what happens. Like the feedback we got from the 15 shows, it was so obvious that like the live thing is what made this bond with our fans. And like people do love the recorded music, but for us, like, I don't know if we're going to start TikToking and doing all that. We certainly haven't yet. You never
Maybe.
know. But we're certainly like the live thing is something that we love doing. So that's kind of home for us. Yeah.
Absolutely. I find that so interesting on how, it's really the live that brings people together. And I find that it's also so interesting because since COVID, there's just been such a huge shift between, like the in-person and then the differences between online and everything.
Yeah, and social connection is such a big part of not only music, but I think also happiness.
Yeah.
Like we've spoken to a number of happiness experts, and they've spoken to us about, happiness. One of the top ways to feel happier is to connect with others, with friends, with family, but also with like people you admire or people whose music or, whatever they're creating you enjoy. And so I think that that's definitely a huge aspect of it.
For sure. And speaking of COVID, in 2020, you dropped your song, Love Is Not Enough, which has been recorded years earlier. What inspired you to reunite and release Love Is Not Enough years later?
Well, I mean, that song was kind of just part of this whole album that we made over the course of it was way before COVID.
Oh, we got our hand forced.
Did we?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we had made a bunch of music before COVID when we were still unsure whether we were going forward or not.
Okay.
Then we sort of stopped and took a break, but we had made essentially
an album
that hadn't come out yet. During COVID, we were contacted by our label at the time, and they're like, "We're gonna put this out."
Oh, right.
Yo, yeah. And
Right.
and we're like, okay, but we're not touring right now. We're scattered all over the place.
We don't know if we're ever going to tour again.
We don't know what's going on. And they said, we don't really care. We're putting it out. And we said, okay. And then it came out.
I see what you mean now.
Yeah.
Yeah. We signed a record deal, and like part of that obligation is if they want to put out the album that you've signed to them on, they can do it. So they let us know like, we're doing this. Are you going to support it? And I think at the time it was confusing.
We said
'cause
kinda.
We're going to kind of support it. Like, we love the songs, but we don't want to like overpromise or confuse people that like this means we're going to come back and do this.
It was also in COVID, and there was nothing we even could have really done.
I was so bored.
So yeah, interesting times.
But like for a better answer, like that album, we did spend a lot of time through some like very tough times in the band making some of those songs. So like I was very personally attached to a lot of those songs in terms of like the memories that I get when I listen to that album. We've never played any of those songs live yet, and we're thinking about doing maybe one or two of them this summer. But it's a weird one for us because normally when you're making an album, like you're all gears, can't wait to go share it and play it. And that one just like sat on hard drives forever. And I'd go for runs and listen to the music, and I'm like, man, this is a shame. But in terms of like how it came out into the world, came out during a COVID void and like a bands on hiatus void.
Yeah.
So we never know if like fans even want to hear those songs, if anyone cares about those songs. And when we're like making a set list for our tour, it's really hard to know, like, did any of this resonate? Like, how would we know? We haven't played any of it live yet.
Yeah, I think, COVID was such a challenging time to
Definitely.
navigate. And I can't imagine, like, even if you were still wanting to tour, like, you obviously couldn't have at those times. So that would have made it really difficult to release new music and new content at. But I think it's exciting that you're considering adding some of those new songs into your set list this season. In terms of working in a band together now that you've reunited, I think, collaboration in a band is evident. Like you said, you're super close, super good friends. You've been for years with the people in your band. And I think for teens, like even Anastasia and I were sisters, but whether you're in a group project or working with others, collaboration is something that we can all struggle with sometimes. So do you have any tips for how to be a better collaborator for anyone who's listening?
I think for me is like just like listening and allowing some time to pass before judging. There's times where like I've heard a demo someone's made out of the guys, and on first listen it's like so weird or different than what I would do that like that's like a negative reaction, and I've learned to be like, difference not necessarily negative, and you sit with it for a couple days and you're like, wow, that's actually really cool. Maybe we'll change this thing or this thing, but just like having a bit of patience with your collaborators, that maybe they're onto something that you're not hip to, and it may take you a minute to catch up to see where they were at.
It's a good answer. I think it's true.
I feel like there's definitely moments where you're like just kind of in the heat of it and you kind of overreact and you kind of give not the reaction that you wanted or maybe like how you were feeling in the moment. But like I think having the ability to step back a bit and realize, let me just kind of think on this first, like you said, is such a great way to make sure that you are genuinely feeling the way that you want to feel. Yeah. You kind of analyzed it already.
Yeah.
It's important to give things a chance. Because I think a lot of people in the arts are naturally heavily opinionated. They know what they like and they know what they don't, and it's really easy to see something or hear something and be like, I hate that.
I hate it.
I hate
it so much.
Right? So instead of being like, I hate that, you just have to be like,
I don't like it yet.
Okay, I'm gonna sit with this for a minute. Try to see the merits in it.
Yeah.
If you still really don't like it, at least understand and like be able to communicate why you don't. I guess, as instead of just like shooting things down extremely quickly.
Fantastic. Exactly.
Absolutely. And I've always wondered about my favorite musical artists. What music do they like to listen to? So, what's your favorite music artist or band right now?
I saw Sia Gray, who's a Canadian. She's like a singer-songwriter, phenomenal bass player. I've been following her for a long time, but I saw her recently in LA, and she's like unbelievable. Saya Gray. If you haven't checked her out, she's killer.
Amazing. We'll have to add her to our playlist.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I find myself still listening to a lot of like old music. I feel like I'm one of those people where like I get comfort out of like rewatching shows. So like I get comfort out of like re-listening to a lot of kind of old music that I would have liked as a kid or just have stumbled across over the years. It's like when I'm not, I feel like I'm listening to so much music that like I help create all the time that it's like a warm bath just being like, okay, this is stuff I know and understand. I know I like this.
Sure.
I tend to go to that.
That's so fair.
Absolutely.
I love rewatching movies and shows, so I love that. What's one of your favorite kind of
old
all the
songs.
songs that you like to listen to?
Oh, I mean, I go back into like Rage Against the Machine and like Wu-Tang and Beastie Boys and like that era of like probably like late 90s rap and like rap rock that would have existed when I was like a small kid that I really like.
For me, like probably like old Motown stuff is like the most listened to. Old Stevie Wonder stuff. Old Michael.
Awesome.
Those are both great.
Yeah, we love that. And so for each of you, I think that a lot of kids, a lot of teens, just like you guys, are interested in music and starting a band. And so if you could give any advice to kind of an aspiring musician, what would that be, an aspiring teen musician?
It's not no, it's just not yes yet. So I feel like that's something super important. Like no just means not yet. Not right now. Maybe later. Like a little bit of rejection is good. Like you need it. Like we were doing some absolute crazy stuff for a while. We're like, no one's supposed to get this and understand how this is going to be successful. And that's just like the goalpost should be huge and wide, and you should dream as big as possible. And then over time, you'll start reining in things here and there and finding whatever lane you're supposed to be in.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, you don't need to put so much pressure on yourself to like get it right out of the gates. Like
yeah.
your first songs, chances are not going to be the song. Your 50th song, chances are is not going to be the song. Just keep doing it. Keep making stuff you like and that you believe in, and learn along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it took doing this podcast for me to like get a really good understanding of like how much useless pressure I was putting on myself for years that was totally avoidable. So I would wish I watched this podcast.
Sometimes it helps. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
I love that so much.
I think we all need that. Like I know I'm going to send this episode to some of my friends after, because I think we all put pressure on
For
ourselves
sure.
that is not necessary.
Absolutely. And if you could go back now, what is one piece of advice you would tell your teenage selves, right, when you were starting the band?
Would it be the same or would it be anything different?
Chill.
Yeah, I was going to say
Chill
calm
out.
down.
Yeah.
I would have said calm down.
Calm down.
Yeah, especially not just teen self, but also early 20 self.
Yeah.
Just like you are taking this way too seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Calm down.
Yeah. Not everything is like live or die. Most things aren't. And like at that age, you just have to give yourself a longer leash and less stress, less pressure.
I love that advice, and I think that's something that, Anastasia and I, at school, there's always external factors of pressure, and, in life in general, there's always external factors in pressure, and so I think just being able to sit yourself down and, like, have that internal radar of, like, yes, maybe others are worried about something, or, this is a stressful time, but, like, it's going to be okay. Like, 10 years from now, I'm going to look back and tell myself to chill. So may as well just start chilling instead of, having that retrospect.
Yeah.
More chilling.
More chilling. Just a little bit more.
Exactly. And so what do you guys both do every day that brings you a small bit of happiness?
Yeah, for me, like definitely spending time with my dog, walking my dog. The dog is a big part of my life now. Having something to do that has nothing to do with myself or music. That's why I love the dog so much. I'm like, it's all about you right now. And like when you walk a dog, if you're a good dog owner, it's like if it wants to stop and smell that bush for 10 minutes, I'm like, yeah, it's your walk.
I don't know if I can pin it down to just one thing. I feel like I live a pretty happy, kind of indulgent life to begin with. Like, I make music for a living. I kind of wake up when I want. I go to bed when I want. I see my friends often. Life's good. I'm happy a lot. So I do a lot of things. Eat a lot of peanut butter. Life's good.
Life's good.
I love that. We love peanut butter too, and like
Absolutely.
Reese's Pieces and all of that good stuff. So yes, that's amazing. And we love our dog too.
Absolutely, yeah. We have a chocolate lab, and she
Yeah.
loves her walks.
And so for our final question, where can our listeners go if they want to keep up and learn more about you or your band?
So we are increasingly more active on IG these days. I'd say that's probably our number one platform, other than like, I guess we have music coming out soon, so Spotify is about to be a place. But I'd say IG for now.
Perfect. We'll
All right,
have that
sounds
linked
good.
in the show notes. And thank you again for joining us today and for this amazing interview.
Yes.
You guys are amazing. I love what you guys are doing.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, and thank you so much to Camm and Tyler for joining us today.
An amazing conversation and some really exciting news if you're in Calgary, Alberta, or you're coming to Calgary for the Calgary Stampede this summer. Tyler and Camm's band, Down With Webster, along with obviously Tyler and Camm, are going to be performing. So check it out. we'll have the link to where you can purchase tickets in our show notes, because you guys should definitely listen to their music, check it out, and if you can, attend the live show, because like they said, they have that incredible connection with the crowd, and I think it's definitely something worth experiencing, or maybe surprising a teen or a family member in your life with tickets. Anastasia, what was your biggest takeaway?
I think my biggest takeaway is that some things should just kind of come naturally. Like, you don't have to force it, and you shouldn't have to try to force it constantly. That sometimes, like, the best things happen without us trying to constantly control it, and that we should just kind of let it be. How about you?
For me, I think one of my biggest takeaways was the importance of like not always putting so much pressure on yourself. I think we put so much pressure on ourselves to achieve certain things, have certain accolades, be a certain way, and realizing that like nothing in life, very few things in life are so permanent and forever, and that there's really, you know, a lot of variability that will come at us. Now, if you enjoyed this episode as much as we did, make sure to send it to other people. Spread that happiness. Share it to someone you know who's interested in joining the music industry or into music. Share this with someone who needs to put a little bit less pressure on themselves, or just share it to any teen, tween, or adult in your life that you think needs to listen, because I know I'm definitely sharing it to a bunch of people I already know. Also, if you enjoyed this interview with Tyler and Camm from Down With Webster, we think you'd love our interview with country music star Chris Lane. Chris walks us through his rise to fame, his top tips for public speaking, and hacks on how to express your creativity however it comes best to you.
Yeah, I feel like I've been a workaholic my entire life, you know, just from a sports perspective. And then when I started learning how to play music, it was just something I did all day long and wanted to spend all of my time doing. And then once I was able to get out there and start touring, I just toured. I never took a break.
You can listen to our interview with Chris Lane now. It's linked in show notes.
If you enjoyed this week's episode of Hack Your Happiness, please leave us a 5-star review from wherever you're listening. It really helps us out, and we really appreciate it.
Also, be sure to join our happiness family. It's 100% free, and that way you'll never miss another episode. You can join the family by following Hack Your Happiness on whichever podcast listening platform you're on now.
See you next time!